Hello students, my name is Sir Mohammed. I am history teacher. Today I will be with Form 2 students in the second topic of history called Socio-Economic Development and Production in Pre-Colonial Africa. Our today's topic is socio-economic development and production in pre-colonial Africa. This is the second topic of history. The second topic of history in Form 2. In this topic, we are going to discuss the types of social organizations and the production practiced or used by the African societies before the coming of colonialism. This is the first lesson, and in the first lesson we are going to discuss the first mode of production or the first social organization practiced by the Africans before the coming of colonialism. So our today's subtopic will be types of social organization, and production in pre-colonial Africa. Here we are going to focus, or we are going to discuss the first mode of production or the first social organization called primitive communalism. Are we together? Yes, but before proceeding or before going into details in this primitive communalism, let us discuss the meaning of the key concepts, that can be used or that are used in studying this topic. Now, let us discuss the meaning of key concepts. These key concepts are normally used in studying this second topic. And the first meaning of the key concept will be the meaning of social organization. Dear students, please, can you tell us the meaning of social organization? Who can try to tell us the meaning of social organization? Yes. Ali, can you try? Good. Social organization refers to the mode of production, refers to the mode of production which existing in a certain place, at a particular time. So when we are talking about social organization, we mean the mode of production. The mode of production which existing in a certain place at a particular time. That's why, as I have said, our today's lesson will focus on discussing one of the mode of production. When we are talking about one of the modes of production, we mean we are going to discuss one of the social organization existed in Africa. We together? Okay. The second concept is production. Who can try to define the term production? Who knows about production? Okay, very good. Production can simply be defined as a major step, in the series of economic process that brings goods and services, to the people. So when we are talking about production, or when we find the word production, we mean a major step in the series of economic process. In the economic process, we have many steps. But one of the major steps is this one called production. And in the production, what do we get? We get goods and what? Yes, and services. So we as human beings, in production, we get goods and services. Are we together? Okay. Another concept is human labor. Human labor. Or sometimes we can call it labor power. Or we can say labor power. Every student says labor power. Okay? So human labor or labor power simply can be defined as human. Here we can say refers to the human efforts. Human what? Human efforts that used in production. As we know, in production, we have so many things which involved. And one of the things involved in production of goods and services is human labor. And in human labor, we can have different types of human labor. We can have skilled, here we can have unskilled labor or human labor. We can have skilled labor or human labor. We can have wage employee. These are types of human labor that are used in production. Are we together? Okay? We proceed. Here what we're discussing is the meaning of the key concepts. Another concept is means of labor. Means of labor. Means of labor. Another concept is what? Means of labor. What is meant by these two words, means of labor? What is meant by means of labor? What do you understand when we are talking about means of labor? Okay. Means of labor refers to the things, things or instruments. Things or instrument used in production. Used in production. Used in production. So when we produce goods and services, we normally use things or we normally use some instruments. Means of labor include means of labor includes tools. Here we have tools. For example, the people who engage in peasant agriculture normally use hand hoes. This is instrument. This is what? Instrument. And is what called means of labor. Also, means of labor include machinery. In the industries, people produce many goods by using machine. So also machines are instruments which are used in production. So when we are talking about the means of labor, we are talking about the things like tools and instruments. We are talking about the things and instruments that are used in production. What are they? There are tools and machinery. For example, hand hoes. Also, we have axes. All these are tools which are used in production. Another concept is object of labor. The object of labor. This is sometimes known as the subject of labor. The subject of labor. What is meant by the object of labor or the subject of labor. What do we mean when we say subject of labor or object of labor? The subject of labor or object of labor refers to the thing upon which human labor, the human labor is applied. Here, simply we can say the object of labor or the subject of labor is where a human being supplies his or her strength, his or her labor, his or her powers. And the most example of the object of labor or the subject of labor is land. Example of the object of labor, simple example is land. From the land, people supply their power in producing various commodities through agricultural activities. From the land, people supply their power in producing or in extracting minerals. So the object or subject of labor, simply we can say, is a place or a thing where human beings supply their power. And the example of object of labor is land. Are we together? Okay? Another concept is productive forces. Productive forces. Who knows about productive forces? Who can tell us? Productive forces. Who knows about this? Productive forces means the means of production. Here we say refers to the means of production, refers to the means of production created by society. Means of production created by society, especially objects and instruments of labor, especially objects and instruments of labor. So when we are talking about productive forces, we mean the objects and instruments of labor. Productive forces include objects and instruments of labor. The last concept is mode of production. Mode of production. Mode of what? Mode of production. Mode of production means the combination of productive forces. Here, you say the combination of productive forces, and what? And the relations of production, and the relations of production. So the mode of production means the combination of productive forces and the relations of production. After discussing these key concepts, now let us go to the first mode of production existed in Africa before the coming of colonialism. Primitive communalism. Primitive communalism. Primitive communalism. Dear student, what is primitive communalism? What is primitive communalism? Primitive communalism. Yes, primitive communalism is the first mode of production, in which all major means of production were owned and shared. By all members of the community. So here we say primitive communalism is the first mode of production. As I have said, in Africa, we had 3 modes of production. The first one was primitive communalism. The second one was slavery. The third one was feudalism. These were the 3 modes of production practiced in pre-colonial Africa. So primitive communalism was the first mode of production, whereby all major means of production, for example, land, house, excess, and other production and other productive instruments or tools, were owned and shared by all members of the community. This means every community member had a right to use the major means of production. Every community member has a right to share the major means of production, and that was what called primitive communalism. The word primitive, simply you can say it is the first or earliest in existing or in existence. So primitive communalism can be defined simply like that. What are the societies practiced this mode of production? Societies practiced primitive communalism in Africa were Hadzabe in Tanzania, there was Mbuti of Congo, Dorobo of Kenya, Ik of Uganda, and Khoisan of Botswana. These were the societies which practiced primitive communalism. Dear students, I hope you have understood our today's lesson, and you are now able to define the key concepts concerning this second topic of history. Also, you are now able to define primitive communalism as the first mode of production or the first social organization existed in Africa. Now is your time to revise what we have discussed today and make sure you do the following simple exercise. Simple exercise. Define the following terms or concepts. Production. B, A is production. B, human labor. C, means of production. Means of production. D, social organization. Social organization. And E, primitive communalism. Primitive communalism. I wish you all the best. See you next time. Goodbye.